So first of all, we got to customize the golden letter, right? So incorporate the buyer's story into the letter. Now, you saw a very standard letter that we've provided. The pro tip here is whatever buyer you're working with, if you know their story, what we call the buyer's story, right? Maybe she's a fireman and he's a nurse. Maybe they both are from the UK. Whatever makes it kind of interesting, you're going to be like, I'm working with these amazing clients. Don't put their names, right? You can put first names, don't put last names. Sarah and John are fantastic people. They've got two little ones named Robbie and Jenny, and I've been trying to help them find a property. If you have any interest in selling, blah, 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 right? So if you add heart to this, people want to help people. People don't necessarily want to help you as a realtor, unfortunately. They don't give up about you. They just don't care, right? So, but if they have that, now also you can add a line in this letter as well, or if you know of anyone that might be interested, if you could please have them reach out to me. You could add that line in, right? So think about it. What I always say when you're creating a strategy, put yourself in the eyes of the recipient. When you get this letter and you read it, would it cause you to take action? Would it cause you to go, oh, maybe I can help? I know I talked to John at the golf course the other day, and he said they were thinking about selling if they had the right buyer. Told me he didn't really want to put it on the market right now, but I remember him saying that. So yeah, maybe I'll pass on his information. That's all this comes down to. It's that fast. Okay. So you can customize the letter. Now, you don't have to put a logo on it if you don't want. That's completely up to you and your decision. You don't have to put, you can make this however you want. And here's the word I want you to write down: beta test. Maybe you do 300 this month with this style. Next month, you do 300 with a different style of letter. See which one gets you the most callbacks. See which one provides the most results. Now, some questions I get is, should I put a QR code on the letter that takes them to a landing page? Should I do all of this? In my experience, and from also talking to the top people that utilize this strategy, the answer is no. You want it to be more personal. We heard last week from Sharon, she does this with a postcard. Can it work? Absolutely. This play is, hey, from me to you, I need help. Can you help me? That's what we're trying to accomplish. But beta test, all right? Any questions right there? Cool, everyone's good? All right. I'm not really keeping up with those, but I'll do the best I can. Next step is you've got to complete your mail merge, right? So Anna, talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so a couple of things. Thank you so much for all of the positivity about last week's mail merge, or excuse me, mailing list videos. We're actually going to pop those in the chat box as well. If you need that step-by-step tutorial on how to pull the mailing list and prepare for the mail merge, you should see those in the chat box here shortly. You can also access those links through the Pulse client portal at any time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, this mail merge, Brendan compared it to landing a spaceship. He couldn't be further from the truth. It is an 8-minute tutorial. It took me moments to get it absolutely completed. Now, I will tell you, making sure that the data is clean is going to be the challenging part, but it's not even challenging. It's going to be a little time consuming. So if you export your mailing list and it has John Jr. and Sally Ann, you'll want to make sure that those owner names are exactly how you want them to be put into the letter. That just communicates a level of diligence and professionalism on your side. So you might have to take a moment to make sure that the export mailing list that you pulled out of the tax records is clean so that it transfers beautifully into your letter. So you can go ahead and scan that QR code for the 8-minute, it's very short, mail merge step-by-step, and then reach out to me if you have any questions. But yeah, it's as simple as that. I also recommend keep it simple in black and white on 8.5 by 11 paper for your first round, right? It's always follow the system, follow the model, then get creative and put your extra flair on it. But if the extra flair is what's going to hold you back from getting the mail in the mailbox or on the doorstep, go with version 1.0, elevate and escalate later. So I hope this is helpful. Brendan, back to you.
I love it. Yes. Yeah. So, and once you get this again, then it's just going to become a rhythm. You can use this for everything that you're going to be doing, farms and all of this stuff. It's all about running your business, right? We're just trying to have a business and not a hope and pray strategy. All right. So that's what we're accomplishing. So open up Santa's End Shop. Remember, you need envelopes, stamps, sign each letter. Here's a big pro tip, right? There are companies that can do this for you, that can make it look handwritten. But again, it still doesn't look quite authentic. So if you have less money to spend right now and more time, use the time to do it the right way. When you have more money and you want to start doing it, buy a handwriting machine, right? You can buy a handwriting machine that'll write every handwritten note card for you. It's $5,000. It's a machine that actually draws a pen that looks exactly like your signature and whatever you want, right? You can do it all the way that way. That would be one of the things. If I'm going to seriously run this strategy, I'd be like, first thing, make money. Second thing, buy machine so I don't have to do it. Third thing, hire my 7-year-old to stuff the letters so I don't have to do it, right? All of these things that you're going to do to provide that leverage along the way, but in the beginning might need to be you. Okay. All right. So Santa's Workshop. Return address. We talked about this. Do not put the return address on there if your buyer is really, really in a different area compared to where your home office is or your home office base is. Because that seller, and I'm going to talk about the strategy here in a second, if it doesn't all work out for a particular buyer, they may not want to list with you because they think that you're out of Thornton and the house is in Castle Rock. For those that are nationwide, 45 to an hour away, 45 minutes to an hour away from each location. Okay. So make sure you're clear on that. All right. Now we're going to get into some strategy. So mail or door knock. Okay. We were talking about this a little bit earlier. So the call to action in your letter is going to be asking the homeowner to call you. Okay. So we're going to talk about some strategies here that we need to have right with our phone. We need to make sure speed to lead is everything, all of that fun stuff. If I'm going to door knock these and not mail them, I'm just going to have a simple script, right? So, hi, my name's Brendan. I'm working with a buyer who's really interested in getting into this neighborhood. So I'm walking around to see if anyone you know might be interested in selling. All right. Now, remember, here's where you want to take some notes. If you're going to do this door knocking, that's great, right? I highly recommend it. You're going to have a higher rate of success for sure. If the person, when you knock on the door and you hand them, well, first of all, you're not going to hand them anything if they answer the door. You're just going to have this conversation. And they're more than likely going to say, yeah, no, I'm not really interested, but thank you for asking. Well, since I'm here, if you were to move, I have a lot of buyers for this area. If you were to move, where would you go next? And when would that be? Where would you go next and when would that be? Now, again, they're holding the door. They might have a kid in one hand, a dog in another, a cat, something screaming, a tea kettle's going off in the background, right? Whatever it is. Don't get upset if they're just like, hey, I don't have time for this. Go, hey, that's okay. I'm just going to leave this with you. If you know of anyone you hear about or you think later on that you might be interested, if you could please reach out to me, I'd greatly appreciate it. Oh, by the way, and here, compliments work a ton. I love what you did with the front yard. Now, if it's a dumpster fire and it's like, a crackhead sleeping in the yard, don't say that. But any compliment you can do is going to get you one more notch closer to them being nice to you, right? Now, remember how you show up matters as well. So again, your personal presentation on door knocking, if you're out there in a Hawaiian t-shirt, it might get you different results. Beta test it. I'm not saying it can't work, but make sure that you're leveling up at the professionalism you want to play at. Okay. Now, here's where people get scared. What if they say yes? They go, yeah, great. I'm super ready to sell, and I'm excited that you have a buyer. Now, this is where, again, you might be like, hey, this is kind of common sense, but it's not common sense because for most of us, this has never happened to us. I remember the first time it happened to me, I was actually shocked. It was a 65-year-old man, retired from the Navy. His wife had just passed away, and he wanted to move to be back closer to kids. And when he told me, he was like, yeah, I'm super excited. I kind of froze and I was like, oh, this is actually happening now. And so I, you have to react very, very comfortably and make sure that now the next process is, and we're going to talk about this, securing your commission, securing your agency relationships. There's a lot of things that have to happen in here to make sure that you're protected. Okay, so I'm going to come to that in just a second. All right. We got to make sure if we're not door knocking, we set up our phone system. So some of you still to this day, I call your phones and I don't know what the problem is. I don't get it. You don't have a voicemail set up that says that you're a real estate agent. It is the weirdest thing to me. I don't understand it. I know there's all these security things out there. You're a business. If I called a local restaurant right now, if I got their voicemail, I should hopefully know that I'm getting the voicemail of the restaurant. You got to have this all kind of set up. So make sure that's the thing. You have to make sure that your voicemail is cleared so people can actually leave voicemails. Some of you, that's a habit that we just don't really have in practice yet. So nothing's more frustrating than a seller wants to call you and your voicemail box is full, which is not fun. And then before you return the call, right? So somebody's going to call and say, hey, I got your letter. Yeah, I'm kind of interested in selling. Maybe they leave their address, maybe not. You can leave in your voicemail too, right? So if you have interest or if you're calling in regards to a buyer email I sent out, please leave your address as well. You can research that ahead of time before calling them back, so you know exactly what you're doing or exactly what the property situation is before you do the callback. Now you can also search by their name. So again, if it's John Smith, it's going to be a little challenging, but they still should come up on your mailing list. So yeah, hey, this is Brendan Bartic. I'm giving you a call back. I got your letter. I have a little bit of interest in selling. If I could get the right price, give me a call back. I'm going to go look Bartic. I'm going to look at my mailing list. I'm going to see what their house is. I'm going to pull that up. I'm going to run all of the data that I need to have a successful phone call. How long have they owned it? What's the property type? All of that fun stuff before I make the call back. The third level of this, and please write this down, I'm also going to cross-reference it against the reverse buyer search in the MLS to see if anyone else has buyers for this particular area, just in case the house is not the right fit for my buyer, right? So if the house is not the right fit for my buyer, I've already done a reverse prospecting search in the MLS. I see that there's 26 other buyers. I can be very honest when I have this conversation with the seller, and I'm going to say to them, yeah, so again, it was great speaking with you. Maybe your buyer decided just now that they wanted to buy another house, or your buyer decides to flake, or whatever it is. I actually have 23 other buyers that are currently interested in this type of property. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to come over and meet with you just to make sure I fully understand the property, understand your goals. I'm going to be in your neighborhood this afternoon anyway at 4 o'clock, or does tomorrow at 1 work better for me to stop by? Okay. Anna, is there a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in. Ernie actually had a really great pro tip in the chat box. If you guys didn't see it, especially if you have an iPhone, I can't really speak to a Droid, but maybe if you have a Droid, you can confirm this. But even though you delete your messages off of the voicemail screen, you need to go into the deleted box and actually clear them, or your voicemail box will continue to get full. People will get that annoying message that this person's mailbox is full. Please try again later. So great pro tip, Ernie. Thank you so much for sharing that. And then also Daniel Davies had a really great question. What if, Brendan, how do we position our voicemail if we hold multiple positions or are a business owner in multiple businesses? How do we frame our voicemails so not to confuse people, but also to be clear for all of the business positions that we hold?
I would get different phone numbers for my different businesses. I mean, I want to have number one is I want to have a dedicated phone number because speed to lead and everything here matters. If I have a phone call coming in for my real estate business, I need to answer that as quickly as possible. Now, I know you can do this with Google numbers and there's a number of ways to route different things. But I would want to have a dedicated line for my real estate business, period. If I'm going to be serious about this, right? If it's a side hustle business for you, which, we kind of hear all the time, then again, you could just leave your number and say, hey, this is Brendan Bartic. I apologize. I'm not able to come to the phone right now. Please leave your name, number, and a detailed message. I'll get back to you as soon as possible. It's not the end of the world. right? It's not the end of the world, but I want people, if I'm outbound selling houses, I want people to know that that's what my position is. It's a great question. Good. All right. Okay. So back at it. With this letter, if we can unpin Anna, just there we go. Thank you. So the next thing, we already talked about it, is make sure that you've prepared the call, you've looked up the tax records, all of that fun stuff. Now let's get into the strategy part, right? So you have an active buyer ready to see the home. So the first thing, we're going to confirm the details of the home and confirm 2 to 3 available dates and times that work for the buyer to view the home, right? So if I actually have a buyer, and I get the call in, or I'm at the door, I'm going to go, fantastic. I can't wait for them to come and take a look at the property. We're going to figure out what time works for us to do that. Then make sure I have a buyer agency agreement with my buyer. Now, I want to warn you here, this is where you can get wonky on getting cut out of a deal. You go and you meet with seller, and or you get a phone call from the seller, and then you take your buyer there. And if you don't have this signed buyer agency agreement that's deadlocked, that you're going to get paid no matter what, you take them to the seller. Seller's not listed on the MLS, so there is no requirement for them to pay any amount of money whatsoever. That has not been established. That's what the MLS does to protect you when they're utilizing a broker. So if you do this, you've got to make sure you have a buyer agency agreement. What I prefer to do is, before I bring my buyer to the property, you can either do a listing agreement that specifies it just for these 2 clients with the seller, and have them sign that, e-sign it, before bringing your buyer to the property. So I want a signed listing agreement. I still want a buyer agency agreement with my buyer, making sure that my income is going to be fully protected. Okay. So that's critically important here. And I'm not a managing broker. I don't play one on TV. Talk to your people, right? There's managing brokers on here. There's ears are probably burning right now. I'm just telling you from what I know, these are the best ways to be protected, right? So make sure you're safe in doing this. You don't want to go and meet with the seller, bring the buyer over. Your buyers decide to backdoor. You go back and meet with the seller and go, hey, look, we get 15, 20 grand off the price if we just buy directly from you. And you'd be like, oh, my buyers would never do that. Okay. Yeah, run that risk. Let me know how it goes. It's not a risk I'd be willing to take. Okay. So you've got to make sure you're protected. All right. Now, let's talk about that strategy for a second here as we really dive deep into it. So first of all, who should pay the compensation, right? Should the seller pay? Should the buyer pay, right? Which one? Now, either one, there is no standard or traditional way of doing this in any form or fashion. If I'm providing a buyer coming to a seller, if I'm going to negotiate this in my listing agreement with the seller just for this one buyer, then I'm going to negotiate in and say, hey, because I'm bringing this buyer to you, I have a compensation for bringing that buyer to your door, and that happens to be X amount, right? Whatever you feel your value is for being compensated for that buyer. Okay. So that has to be written into the signed agreement. If the seller goes, yeah, no, I'm not paying you squat. If you have a buyer that wants to buy the house, they'd be lucky to get this property. Then you need to have in your buyer agency agreement that because you found this amazing property for your buyers, off market, by the way, from door knocking in the snow, uphill, in a blizzard, and all the work that you put into this, then you're going to put your finder fee or your compensation into your buyer agency agreement to make sure that you're protected. Okay. Now you're hearing all the rigmarole and all the things in the courts right now. We want to make sure all of our I's are dotted, all of our T's are crossed in this process. And don't get into your head going, well, it just feels awkward to have to ask for this, or it feels awkward. You know what's really awkward? Not getting paid. Not getting paid is awkward. So be careful and be protected in this process at all times. Okay. Now we're going to get into some technical, yet the way that this play usually happens. All right. So scenario number 2, what if your buyer just goes under contract 2 days prior and a seller calls you and goes, "Hey, I got your letter about this buyer. Yeah, I'm kind of interested in selling. When can you bring the buyer by to take a look at the house?" Well, your buyer now is gone because they bought another house, because this seller might have taken 3 weeks to call you back, might have taken however much time. So you've got to be very careful. And this is where role play matters, practice matters in your scripting, right? So I'm going to confirm the details of the home and I'm going to say, I'm actually working with several buyers in that area. So he calls up and he goes, "Hey, I got your letter about the buyers, the firefighter and the Navy SEAL or whatever the story is of your people, right? Your buyers." And you're going to go, "Oh my gosh, well, actually, to be quite honest with you, those clients went under contract just the other day on another great property, but I'm working with several buyers in the area. And can I ask, if it was the perfect situation and you could move, where would you go next? And when would that be? Like, what would be the perfect situation?" So you can transfer easily to that if your buyer is now no longer existent, and just dive right into it that you have other buyers, because you do, right? Your office, the MLS, everyone else. That's one strategy play to go and do this. The second strategy play is, if you know your buyer went under contract, and I'm not telling you what to do or how to do it, you could still go and meet with the seller and go, "Oh my gosh, great. Well, thank you for calling me back. I'd love to come over and take a look at the property, see if it's the right fit for my clients. I can be in your neighborhood this afternoon at 4 or tomorrow at 1 o'clock." Now you already set the appointment. When you get to the appointment and you've made a face-to-face interaction, you've met with said seller, now you can go to the seller, "Well, actually, again, I wanted to come over and meet with you. The buyers that I sent the letter about, they actually went under contract on another home that I was working with them on. But now that I've seen your property, I have several other buyers that I think would be a great fit for it. So what I'd like to do to make sure I can maximize your net return, I'd like to sit down with you for a few minutes and explain to you how I help sellers get the highest price possible for their home in the shortest period of time. So can we sit down for a few minutes? Would that be fair?" Sit down. Now you're there face to face. It's going to be hard for them to boot you out the door. On the phone, they might be like, "Oh, so that buyer's gone? Yeah, you know what? Never mind. It's fine. Yeah, I don't want to list my house. I don't want to list my house." Here's the thing with sellers. They're so funny about all of this. "Yeah, I don't really want to list." And it's like, what are you talking about? If the right buyer came along, I'd be interested in selling. If you have this magic secret buyer, I'd be interested in selling. You want to put your home on the market to get the highest price possible in the shortest period of time with the most exposure. It's our job as real estate professionals to explain that to them. Okay. But you don't get this finesse down. You go, "Oh, my buyer, they're going to be like, 'Yeah, you can go ahead and get out of my house now. Thanks. Thanks so much for wasting my time.'" So there is finesse, there is technique built into this. Okay. And then what if you're farming the neighborhood and it doesn't fit the buyer need, right? So again, you're farming this area, and your buyer, when you're looking at this call list. So let's say that Sharon put together this amazing mailing list, and her buyers are looking for a single family home, right? Her buyers are looking for a single family home. In your mailing list, for whatever reason, it pulled up a townhome or a condo accidentally, or it pulled up a house that's on 10 acres, even though your buyers are only looking for a normal house on a regular lot. So if it doesn't fit, right, that's if it doesn't fit, you have to acquit. I don't know why I just thought about that. But anyway, if it doesn't fit, then we're going to pivot, right? We're going to pivot in this process. So again, I'm actually working with several buyers, perfect situation. Once you move forward with the seller profile and build rapport. So here's how I do this all the time is I go, so either I'm door knocking or they called. I'm like, "Hey, look, actually, my buyer was looking for a property with a main floor master, or 1 acre or 3 acres or a mountain view, whatever the property is. I'm gonna explain to them what they were looking for. it looks like you only have 3 bedrooms. My buyer needed 5 bedrooms, this particular buyer. But John, Susie, I'm working with a lot of buyers right now. So I'd love to come by, right? You can pivot right to that, or you can go, so if it was the perfect situation, when would you like to have the home sold and when would you like to move? Just get them talking. Now, in the chat box, we're going to put the seller profile, right? We created this very simple seller profile that you're just going to jump right into. Who cares about your current buyer? Your energy now is going to depict you moving forward with this client, and you're just going to move right into that person's not the right fit, but I got others. Let's talk about what your reason is for wanting to even think about selling right now, and who are you and what's going on and your story and all of that fun stuff. And then I'm already going to be in your neighborhood this afternoon. I'd love to come by and meet with you, take a look at the property. Or does tomorrow at 1 work better? Are nights or weekends better for you? Would you like to meet this week during the evening, or would next week be better for us to meet? Always doing an alternating close on any conversation that we're utilizing. Okay. Now, yeah, and I saw some people posting in here heat map, right? Depending on the tech stack you use, like for example, we use Ylopo. With Ylopo, it has a tech stack that out of the 79,000 people we have in our database, in our combined database of our organization, it brings up everybody in the database that's matched to a specific buyer for their area. And it actually will show you their real name. They'll show their first name with their last name blurred out, a real phone number kind of blurred out, and that they're a real person the last time they were looking on that property. Think about the power in that. I bring that heat map over to the seller and I go, or I email it to them and I go, here's a report of all of the people I've got in my database right now that are extremely interested in purchasing in this area. And these are real people right now that are interested. So there is tech that's being used right now. And I know other platforms have similar things. And like I said, you can do this in the MLS on a reverse prospecting search. So remember, leverage all the buyers. Don't get caught up in your mindset about, I just have one buyer. Okay. You have all the buyers in the world, all of the buyers in the world. All right. Any questions there? And there's a lot there. Cool. All right. We're going
No,
on.
the only thing I
Okay.
will say is, oops, sorry. We are getting a lot of questions on a video, requesting a video how-to on how to do reverse prospecting in the MLS. So we hear you. We're going to go ahead and get that video produced, and we should have that be available over the next couple of days, and we'll notify you as soon as it's available for you guys to execute on.
Absolutely. It's a powerful tool. It's a powerful list. And you should be doing that for every time you take a listing regardless, right? Because now you can reach out to all the brokers, announce your listing to them, send them a specific email, maybe with a deeper video and say, hey, I saw that you had this search on in MLS for a buyer. I think it could be a perfect fit for your client. Call them, take that extra mile. I love that. All right, we'll get that sorted. So next up, scenario number 5, you don't receive any calls. Dang. You put together all this work, 300 letters. You said Van Wickler told me, Brendan, that it was going to work. No one calls. Wah, wah, wah. What do you do? Right? So in the chat box, you send out 300 letters. You did not get 6 calls. You did not pass go. You did not collect the $200,000 that you're supposed to get from this mailer. What do you think you do? Monique, I love it. Try again. Right? Orlando, do it again. Right? Send another letter. It may take forward, it might multiple times. Sharon, you're exactly right. Logan, be thorough, right? With your comps first. I love it. You follow up. All right. So there's some good feedback in there. All right. So let's break it down. So if you received 0 calls, okay, and I love all of these, yeah. Find an active, yeah, Emma's very deep. That's a great one, right? We read that for sure. So here's the thing, right? This is why we do beta testing, right? So the first letter, maybe you didn't do handwritten addresses because you go, you know what? Screw that. I don't want to do it. I'm going to do labels. Nothing wrong with doing labels, but maybe you decided to go labels and labels didn't hit because people go, label, realtor, probably a scam, right? So maybe you switch up the game next time and you do this. Maybe you take the logo off. Maybe you use a real stamp instead of this stamp. Maybe you use a stamp with the Flintstones on it. I don't know, something that catches their attention. I don't know if there's a Flintstone stamp, but I would assume there is, right? Whatever it is that you're going to put out there, you change it up a little bit. That's the first thing. You can change your letter. The second thing is if you mailed it, you could go and door knock the area. Absolutely. Because now they've received the letter. Think about how much better it is to door knock now that they've received the letter and they go, oh, yeah, we got that. No, we thought about it, but yeah, we're not really interested. Oh my gosh, well, I'm glad you got the letter. So you have my contact information. Well, can I ask you if you were to move, since I have so many buyers, where would you go next and when would that be? Whatever they're going to say, right? I'm never going to move. I'm going to die in this house. That's going to be 1 out of 100 answers. I'm going to move as soon as we retire. So we've got about 3 years left. We're waiting for Johnny to finish middle school so we can take him to AKA academy and blah, blah, blah. But now you're building this reputation in this neighborhood of going, I sent you the letter. I'm here showing up. I've got buyers. I'm a normal person, right? You've made a relationship with them. Now you have them in your database. Now you're going to follow up with them over and over again. And that's where we get back to the word strategy, right? That's where this becomes an endless strategy where we're going deeper and not wider. What I want you to write down is do not abort the area. I mean, going, I'm not going to use this area anymore. I'm going to jump out of this area and go shoot a shotgun at another area, right? It's like, that didn't hit. That didn't hit. No, we want to put the scope on. I don't know anything about guns. Well, I did in the Army, but I don't know anything about guns. But I'm just saying, right? You're going to put a laser thing on it. You want to get really refined on our target pattern here instead of just blasting all over the place. Okay. All right. So go deeper, not wider. All right. And make sure we're clear on that. Maybe your buyer story wasn't good enough. Maybe you didn't have a buyer story. Right. So I'll answer any of these other questions in overtime, but those are some of those major techniques. Okay. So now,
Brendan, I want to jump in there really quick on if you guys are really looking to leverage this strategy, and leverage meaning how do I do more with less effort? You can also consider doing a slide broadcast. Hey, I just sent you a letter, wanted to make sure you got it. Give me a call back. You can do the same thing with easy text or any version of easy text where you can blast text message as a follow-up to your letter, along with just giving them a call or a simple email as well. So a strategy is a consistent drip over time. A tactic is a one-stop shop effort to see if maybe you pop a deal on a one-time effort. So just to kind of give a little bit of context and some tech that you can really leverage if you're doing this at a high level, sending out 300, 500, 1,000 letters a month, start leveraging the technology. It'll make your life a lot easier.
And Anna, of course, we already know they would do this by adhering to all, and I do mean all TCPA guidelines, right?
Yes,
if you're
right.
using these other tech platforms, I mean, they're fantastic, but remember, none of you want to have to deal with a do not call list violation. And none of you want to be annoying and shove things down people's throat that they don't necessarily want. But there is a lot of tech out there that you can utilize to improve this process if you're handling it the right way. So yeah, absolutely. All right, cool. Thank you. All right, moving on. So now as we put this whole thing together, right? Again, if it doesn't work, which I don't think will be the case, but I know won't be the case, go back and look at what your strategy was. If your mailing list, some people were asking me last week, well, how should I define where I want to go? Even if I'm, maybe I don't have a buyer I'm working with right now. Can I still run this play? Yes, absolutely. You have a buyer. I'll buy let me state this. Well, maybe in different states. I probably still would. I will buy any house anywhere in any state for the right price. You have a friend in the diamond business, right? That's a Colorado commercial here, right? I am your buyer. Don't ever get stuck in you not thinking you have a buyer. It's just at what price would I buy it at? Once you get that mindset that someone in your office right now will buy any house in any neighborhood at a certain price. Do not get stuck in going, I can't go after this neighborhood because I actually don't have a buyer for this neighborhood right now. Okay? I hope that sets. I hope that hits. I hope everyone understands, because that's huge to try to understand in this.